the panelists. I'm Geraldine Velasco.
I'm Eleja Mariano.
And I'm Miko Albaytar.
And we are Team Myrthle of AB Political Science, Section 3-3. The secret to change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but on building a new one. This quotation simply implies that in order for us to progress and to grow, we must adapt to changes. Earlier last year, news of a new virus named novel coronavirus or the COVID-19 spread throughout every nation and every countries of the world. The said virus that originated from Wuhan, China, had serious implications on our well-being. Government officials declared different preventive measures in order to contain the virus. From lockdowns to closures of business establishments just to avoid the mass gathering of people. Another method for containment of the virus is the observance of the wearing of facials and face masks in order we go outside our homes. And the strict implementation of the minors and senior citizens are told to stay at home too because they are the ones who are very vulnerable of the disease. With this, us civilians are not only affected with the inconvenience in our lives, but also the entrepreneurs, the employment of the people, and how we manage our daily lives.
The statement of the problem. This study aims to assess the effects of 12 noon to 5 p.m. modified curfew hours. Basis for the implementation of modified curfew hours for selected business establishment. It aims to answer the following questions. Number 1. What are the common challenges of some business establishment during a pandemic? Number 2. What types of business establishment are allowed to operate during curfew hours? Number 3. How does the modified curfew hours affect the consumers in Barangay 177? And lastly, can the implementation of modified curfew hours be a permanent policy?
The null hypothesis. First, will the modified curfew hours lessen the profit of business establishment? Second, is there a significant difference in the community of Barangay 177 when the modified curfew hours were implemented? Third, what are the opinions of the consumer about the implementation of the said policy? Fourth, based on the gathered information, what adjustment can be proposed to the barangay regarding modified curfew hours for future implementation? And last, there is no significant relationship between the modified curfew and the business establishment.
The significance of the study. First, this study will analyze the effects of modified curfew hours for selected business establishment. Second, this study will be the basis of future modifications of curfew hours and its effect in the community. Third, the study will be beneficial to the following. First, employee. This study will help them to adjust to their working area since they are the one who provide our essentials. Second, resident. This study will help the resident to know the effects on their daily living. Last, entrepreneur. This study will help business owners to understand and seek innovations in order to adapt with the changes.
Definition of terms. Barangay. A barangay is a small administrative division in the Philippines. This is a Filipino term for village, district, or ward. Establishment. Establishment means the business entity in Barangay 177, Zone 18. Enhanced community quarantine. This is a form of community quarantine wherein implementation of strict protocols are observed. General community quarantine. While this one is the opposite of enhanced community quarantine. In this form of quarantine, there is a more relaxed implementation of restrictions. Implementation. Implementation is the putting into action of a plan or a decision. Modified curfew hours. Modified curfew hours is the closure of business establishments from 12 noon to 5 p.m. in the vicinity of Barangay 177, Zone 18. In modified curfew hours, residents are also not allowed to go outside during the said period. Modification. Modification are changes or alterations in a plan or decision. Ordinance. Ordinance is a piece of legislation that is implemented in a municipality. Chapter 2, Review of Related Literature. On March 15, 2020 last year, our President Rodrigo Roa Duterte placed Metro Manila under enhanced community quarantine. This means that a stricter implementation of preventive measures shall be implemented in the said area. Based on a report of One Media, 16 barangays of Pasay City were declared as critical area. This was because of the sudden rise of active cases in different barangays. One of these barangay is Barangay 177, Zone 18, under the authority of Barangay Captain Nelson Tikman. In order to contain the virus, Barangay Captain Nelson Tikman ordered the implementation of modified curfew hours. The said ordinance ordered business establishments to close during the period of 12 noon to 5 p.m. every day, and also the residents were not allowed to go outside during the said period, especially the minors and the senior citizens, because they are the ones who are very prone to be affected of the virus. With this, the virus did not only attack our well-being, but also our income. This is why we aim to assess the effects of the implementation of the modified curfew hours in Barangay 177, Zone 18 of Pasay City.
Chapter 3, Research Methodology. Introduction. The study was conducted for the purpose of assessing the effects of the 12 noon to 5 p.m. modified curfew hours as basis for the implementation of the modified curfew hours for selected business establishment in Barangay 177, Zone 18, Pasay City.
Research design. A descriptive method was used to research and survey. Technique was utilized. The sample and sampling technique used. The questionnaire was used instrument in order to collect the needed data, and the questionnaire indicates a special portion wherein only respondents who are resident but not entrepreneurs in the barangay shall answer, and vice versa.
The statistical treatment, a total 50 respondents were selected and 25 of which are business owners, while 25% were normal residents. Percentage, 25 residents divide 50 times 100 is equals 50% of the respondents. 25 entrepreneur divide 50 times 100 is equals to 50% of the respondents. Data gathering. The inquiry was conducted last 2020 during the period of Enhanced Community Quarantine or ECQ when the modified curfew hours was implemented. The questionnaires were sent by email and messenger to avoid physical contact due to the restrictions implemented to contain the COVID-19 virus.
Chapter 4, Data Analysis. This study was done in order to ascertain the possibility of the continuance of the ordinance or the implementation of modified curfew hours, and as well as the selection of business establishments that will be permitted to operate during the curfew hours. A total of 50 respondents were asked to answer as a questionnaire. All of them are residents of Barangay 177, Zone 18. 25 of the respondents are normal residents, while the other 25 are entrepreneurs or business owners. Based on Table 3.1, 44% of the respondents were middle-aged. They are the ones who are ranging from the age of 41 to 50 years old. While based on Table 3.2, 68% of the respondents were female. This was because the survey was done during the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. This simply implies that the male companion or the most of the respondents are wives, mothers, or sisters who are at home during that time. That clearly shows in Table 3.3. 52% of the respondents were married. So in connection to that, most female respondents are actually married and middle-aged. This part of the survey was only answered by residents of Barangay 177. In Table 3.61, we asked the residents of Barangay 177 of what is the primary goods that they consume. This is in connection with Table 3.6.1. The primary goods are divided into four different categories. Number one is mostly sold in sari-sari stores, which are the food essentials. Then number two is bread, which is actually sold in bakeries. And three, the meat shops, the meat, the vegetables, the raw ingredients and food. And lastly, the cooked meals, which are sold in carinderias. We did the same thing in the next table, wherein we divided it in the four most prevalent business establishment in Barangay 177. As we can see, 68% of the residents answered that the primary goods that they consume are food essentials, which are available in sari-sari stores, which the resident also answered as the essential business establishment that should be open even while the modified curfew hours is implemented. While this part of the survey, we asked the entrepreneurs. This is to know the type of business they are in and the primary goods that they are selling. Same as from table 3.61, we categorize the products in four different category, and same as the type of businesses. As you can see, the most dominant business establishment in Barangay 177 is a sari-sari store, followed by the carinderias. We also asked the entrepreneurs if there is a significant loss of profit when the modified curfew hours was implemented. 64% of the respondents or the entrepreneurs said yes, there is a profit loss while the modified curfew hours was implemented. As you can see in the table, 20% answered that there is no significant change in the profit or there is no profit loss. This is most probably because some business establishments actually closed even before the implementation of modified curfew hours, such as the meat shops. They are closed with 12 noon because mostly people prepare their food even before 12 noon. Now, we continue to the part where all respondents answer the survey or the questionnaire. This is table 3.7. We asked the respondents whether or not they agree with the implementation of the modified curfew hours. Interestingly, there is only an 8% difference between those who agreed and those who did not. Based on table 3.7, 54% of the respondents did not agree with the implementation of the modified curfew hours, while 46% actually agreed. This is because of the said purpose of the ordinance, which was to contain the virus. On table 3.8, we asked whether the implementation of the modified curfew hour was an inconvenience to the daily lives of the respondents and the entrepreneurs. Surprisingly, 38% of the respondents believe that the implementation of the modified curfew hours did not actually inconvenience them. And 16% actually believe that there is no significant change. As the main purpose of the implementation of the modified curfew hours was to contain the virus, we asked the respondents whether or not the ordinance served its purpose. 66% of the respondents believed that the ordinance actually did a good job in lessening the active cases in the barangay. In table 3.10, we asked the respondents whether or not they agree with the continuous implementation of the modified curfew hours. A total of 46% were undecided on whether or not they would agree with the continuation of the said modified curfew hours. This being said, it only implies that probably with some with adjustment and minor changes, these 46% of the respondents would actually agree on the continuous implementation of the modified curfew hours. This clearly shows in Table 3.11 when we asked the respondents, should the barangay change the hours of the modified curfew hours? And surprisingly, 88% of the respondents believe that the barangay should change the hours of the modified curfew hours. This also means that they tend to agree if adjustments are done regarding the implementation of the curfew hours. In Table 3.12, 58% of the respondents believe that the implementation of the modified curfew hours actually helped in the fight against COVID-19. As the main mechanics of the implementation of the ordinance, we asked the respondents whether or not the barangay officials were actually active in the implementation of the ordinance. Surely enough, 78% of the respondents thinks and believes that the barangay officials or the members of the barangay actually did the thorough job with the implementation of the modified curfew hours. In the next table, we asked the respondents whether or not the consumers were actually inconvenienced or are having a hard time while the modified curfew hours was implemented. Although 48% of the respondents believe that it is inconvenient to the residents and the consumers, 34% of the respondents believe that there is no significant change. If we add up those who believe that there's no significant change before and after the implementation of the modified curfew hours, and those who believe that it is not an inconvenience in their lives, that is 52%, meaning 52% of the respondents may actually agree on a continuous implementation of the modified curfew hours, which is also clearly shown in Table 3.15 when we asked the respondents if they agree in the expansion of the implementation of the ordinance, meaning if the ordinance should be expanded to the next barangay or the adjacent barangays. This shows that 54% are undecided, meaning with adjustments that is agreeable and that would consider the convenience of the people, they will tend to agree on the continuous and the expanded implementation of the modified curfew hours. Aside from the purpose of the ordinance being to contain the virus, we also asked the respondents if, while the implementation of the modified curfew hours was happening, was it beneficial for the youth? 70% believed that it was beneficial for the youth. Maybe because at the time of 12 noon to 5 p.m., if the youths are not allowed to go outside, they could actually do more productive things inside their homes, such as reading, studying, or watching educational videos. Another connection to that is Table 3.17, which we asked the respondents if the implementation actually helped in lowering the crime rate, which actually they believe so because 48% of the respondent thinks that while the modified curfew hours was implemented, the crime rate was lessened. This is one of the major questions that is needed to be answered. 78% of the respondents believe that not all establishments should be closed while the modified curfew hours is implemented. This only shows that if there are adjustments such as selection of business establishments, especially on the other tables as we shown earlier, which the dominant or the most prevalent the most prevalent establishment that is needed by the people is the sari-sari store. If we open sari-sari stores, maybe the people would tend to agree on expanding and continuously implementing the modified curfew hours. This also shows in Table 3.19 when we asked the respondents if they agree on the continuous implementation of the modified curfew hours even after the pandemic. As you can see here, 54% of the respondents are still undecided. So this clearly implies that with modifications, adjustments, and changes, we can therefore surmise that these undecided respondents may actually agree on the continuous implementation of the modified curfew hours. And lastly, on table 3.20, we asked the respondents of suggestions regarding the implementations of the modified curfew hours, which 48% of the respondents picked that sari-sari store or selected business establishment should be permitted to be open even while the modified curfew hours is implemented. While 34% of the respondents actually believe that a change in the time and the timeline of the implementation should be made, like from 12 noon to 5 p.m., let's make it to 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. This is to give consideration to the entrepreneurs because a shortened time of period of operation can actually mean a huge profit loss for them. The modified curfew hours was implemented in Barangay 177 only. Therefore, we could say that it is a very young ordinance, meaning that we need a thorough more research on the needs of the people and the adjustment that needs to be made in order for the people to accept the ordinance and make it their new normal.
Chapter 5. Findings, Conclusion, and Recommendation. Findings. In the analysis of data collected, the implementation of modified curfew hours had affected the profits of the business establishment that were closed during the period in the view of the fact that the ordinance was only implemented for the purpose of containing the spread of the virus. Other positive effects have also been noted, like the lowering of the crime rate in the community and the beneficial effect to the youth. The inputs also indicated that convenience stores are affected more than other business establishments. Respondents were keen towards the opening of convenience store during the modified curfew hours because, as a result from the data gathered, food essential and other are only available in the convenience stores. In regards to the main purpose of the ordinance, the respondents believe that the containment of the spread of the virus was evident while the modified curfew was implemented. In connection with this, the barangay officials were seen active in the thorough implementation of the ordinance. The data showed positive and negative response regarding the implementation of the curfew, but still a big portion of the respondents believe that some adjustments are needed in order to lessen and strengthen the effects of the ordinance. The most adjustment was permitting convenience store to operate during the modified curfew hours.
Conclusion. The most common challenge faced by entrepreneurs during the implementation of modified curfew hours was profit loss because of the shortened length of the period of operation of business. The need for convenience store is prevalent because of the variety of available products for consumer. The main effects of the implementation of modified curfew hours were the inconvenience to the consumer. Respondents tend to agree on the implementation of the ordinance when selected business establishments were allowed to operate mainly the convenience store. As the ordinance was only implemented for a short period, adjustments are needed in order to fully implement it as permanent policy. The data collected suggested that with modifications agreeable to the people so long as it does not inconvenience their daily course in life, such policy may also be expanded wide scale.
Recommendations. Our group recommends a more thorough research about the beneficial effect of the implementation of modified curfew hours on the youth. Second recommendation is a research about the adjustments of hours or the adjusting of the hours of the implementation of modified curfew hours. Probably from 12 to 5 in the afternoon, we can make it a little bit shorter, like 1 to 3, in order to also give considerations to entrepreneurs. Next recommendation is a research about the needs of the people during the implementation of the modified curfew hours. As a sample is, if the sari-sari stores are open, what are the available products that the people need in order for them not to feel inconvenient of the curfew hours. And lastly, our group recommend programs and seminars for barangay officials. This is for the reason that they are the one who will actively implement the modified curfew hours. 7-8. Good afternoon once again. We are Team Me Myrthle, VP Political Science Section 3-3. I'm Geraldine Velasco.
I'm Eleja Mariano.
And I'm Miko Albaytar.
Thank you for listening.